Richard Bland is going to talk to us about the 1961 AGP vehicles. I think, having had that excellent presentation from Parky on the Sporting Car Club involvement with the various Grand Prix up until 1981, Richard's liable to be longer. Thank you, Richard.
In a lot of ways, I feel a bit like a fraud being up here, given that the actual race happened more than a year before I was born. It was a really interesting time, that sort of 61, 62 era, because here in Australia our racing cars for the Grand Prix were in a real phase of change, from having combined what were sports cars as well as the open wheeler race cars to what we would know today as our peak racing of just pure open wheelers. So we've got a couple of the cars that did race at the 61 Grand Prix here, the Repco Ricardian and the Tess, and there was also an Elfin Streamliner that raced there as well, just like the 95 here in the corner, and they're all sports cars. So Parky gave us a really good description of the hero cars of the day, and the majority of those being the Cooper Climaxes. It was just on half the field were Coopers in that 1961 event. The big ones were the 6 Type 51 Coopers, and all of those except the winning car were 2.5 litre Cooper Climax motored cars. And so they were exactly the same as Jack Brabham had won his 1959 World Championship in. Then you had Bib Stillwell with his Type 53, which was what they called the low-line Cooper. And that was the same model as Brabham won his 1960 World Championship in. So if you can imagine, here we are in October 1961, racing the same car that won the 1960 World Championship. Imagine going to Mercedes today and say, hey, I'll have Lewis Hamilton's last year car, and let's get it to Australia, and we'll use it in open competition. So it's, I suppose probably shows that when you had guys like Stan Jones, Bill Patterson, and David Mackay, and the like, all racing there, that there must have been still plenty of money in selling cars and car-related things back in the day. And Bolter will tell you that's still the case today. Also in the field there as well. So we had Stillwell in the latest and greatest car, and as Parky said, they mixed up the back tyres on the car, so he didn't have great handling, and he ended up finishing second. We also heard that it only cost Davison £100 to rent the race car for the weekend and win the Grand Prix. I'm assuming that Stillwell was pretty happy in the condition it was returned. There was also Cooper Bristol, one of the front engine cars, and there's a great photo that I'm sure just about everybody here today will have seen of the start, where the flag's been dropped. Mackay's missing from the photos because he's down in turn 3 there, while all the others, and you see that picture with all the cars arrayed there. So we've got the front engine Cooper Bristol, the Cooper Bobtail, which was also another one of the sports cars, very similar to the car that in style to the car that Brabham won at Port Wakefield in. And Cooper Jaguar, another sports car that John Ampt was driving, and John Ampt later continued to run in historic racing right up through into the 90s. Another interesting car was being driven by Mel McEwen was the Tornado, front-engined car, Corvette powered, and was probably still in that time. I think it was running its 6th Australian Grand Prix. It was probably still the fastest car of the lot there in terms of top-end speed. that actually had taken that car out to Lake Eyre before Campbell did his world speed records in an attempt to set speed records with the Tornado, and it has involved in a lot of famous races in Australia at the time, Bathurst against the Maybach and the like. And this Grand Prix, the cars there, so I've spoken a lot there about the Cooper cars, so all the factory cars, but this was the era when the factory cars were coming in and the specials were reducing in the number. There, so the Tornado, one of our Australian specials. The Alta Holden that was run by Murray Trenberth, that car was an ex-Grand Prix car. There that had been bought out to Australia, and then was actually bought out by, I think it was Bill Patterson bought the car out, and then had it fitted with the Holden motor and rebodied. The Elfin Streamliner and the Vitesse, the Zephyr Special, the Keith Ralston driven car. In fact, I don't think Ken Messenger is here today, but both the Ricardian, the Vitesse and the Zephyr Special were all cars that Ken was involved in the restoration and the rescue of over periods of time. That was quite an amazing and unique Australian special, the supercharged Zephyr, where all of the drivetrain was basically a stressed member. The great Repco Ricardian there, and which didn't manage to finish the race, and there was also the Osper, a Formula Junior car, small rear engine car. Gary Cooper, I believe, practiced in the Elfin Formula Junior. They're the first of the Formula Juniors, but unfortunately lost the gearbox before the start of the race. We heard about Dud Dancy, who was involved in the formation, some of the earlier Grand Prix as well. He had the BBM with the what was it, the radial valve Holden. Yes, yeah. Rotary valve. Don't know a lot about that engine, but it sounded like a pretty interesting piece of equipment. I think one of the interesting ones was the Cooper Bobtail that raced there with Alan Jack. That car had initially been bought out to Australia as one of Bill Patterson's cars, and for those that have been involved in historics, you'll know that Bill Patterson's cars are white with a pale blue stripe down the centre. That was the way he raced those. And the Cooper Bobtail was the first car that he had that came in those colours. And the reason it came in those colours was originally destined to go to the US. America. Yeah, and bit of a call to Jack Brabham, and got redirected to Australia for Pato, and that became his team colours. What else do we have? Oh, we had I guess the missing car was Davison's Aston Martin that was delayed in getting back, but he would have been more than happy to have had the Cooper instead. His Cooper only being a 2.2 litre car, whereas all of the other Coopers that were running were 2.5 litres. Stan Jones didn't make the start with his car. I think at the time, so this is 1961-62 era, in Australia there were a total of 11, I believe, of those Type 51 Coopers. If you can imagine that, there's virtually half a grid of Formula One cars that we ended up with here in Australia. Pretty exciting era for us to have. So it was really the changeover then on the vehicles from the sports cars leaving. The next year at Caversham there was only one sports car that raced. Everything else was basically factory cars, and then really it was the last of the years of the specials as well before we moved into again continuing with the big factory cars as Brabham made his annual trips. The Mackay car was that came third in the end, first over the line, third in placings. That was the car that Brabham had bought out for the summer race series, and as Brabham always did, he then sold that car at the end of the New Zealand Australia season to whoever had the biggest wallet. And I guess that was Mackay. Mackay had established his Scuderia Velocia team that John Yule, that Parky referred to, the Tasmanian quick racer, was part of. I think that deal was largely that Mackay's team would manage the maintenance and preparation of the car, while Yule's family would pay the bills. I think that's just about it on the cars. Everyone else got any other memories they remember of special vehicles that or significant things that happened with the cars that raced in '61?
I can probably tell you why the test retired. Gears that Ron and Nick did an extension on the gear shift like a lot of cars had in those days, and the welding broke, and the lane was a pretty out there sort of person, as you can imagine, as a pioneer type woman. She came into the pits, abusing them, turning them out, inadequate they were, generally shaking the gear lever at them. And that was her race after about 6 laps.
Right.
So it could have gone longer maybe.
Yes.
And she could have made the papers.
I think after Helene raced in our Grand Prix, I think anyone know who probably the next female racer in Australian Grand Prix was? I think it was Lella Lombardi, the Italian driver that came out in the Formula 5000s. All right, thanks.